Good afternoon, and welcome back to my practice and masterclass live stream. Today's May 14th, and we are going to talk about lesson components, different parts of what you might encounter. If you've never taken private lessons before, then it'll give you some expectation. Everybody is different when you teach, but it'll give you some expectation about what kinds of things happen in a lesson. And if you already take lessons, you might not be doing all of these things in every lesson, but some of them might be things that your teacher doesn't know that you actually need to do. And it would be a great thing if all of our students said, hey, I'd really like to do more transposition in my lessons, or, I feel like I'm really weak in my flexibility. Do you think we can work on that a little bit every week, just to check in, right? So, but this is a practice stream, so what at first I thought I'll just run through what a normal lesson is like, and I'll just be the teacher and the student, right? I'll do all the materials in the order that I would normally do them with my students, and we can see together. But then I thought, well, that's not really a practice stream. That doesn't show you how to work on those materials at all, and so that's not as valuable. I mean, I guess it tells you what's there, but it also doesn't really give you much more information. And I really pride myself in this stream on showing you what I would do to prepare those materials. And so that's what I want to do today. So we're kind of going to prepare for a lesson as if it were about to happen. And then we're going to go through the lesson materials, but I won't have already practiced them. I will show you how I would practice those things during the week, because there is no other person here to adjudicate me and give me advice, right? It's just me. And so it's really kind of what I would do all week anyway, and there's not really a deadline to that for me, right? But for you, if you're taking lessons, there is. It all kind of happens in a place at a time. And for me, in a lot of ways, that's this live stream. So anyway, let's get started. What should you do? Well, let me give you an overview, actually. In a normal lesson, right, let's say you're about to have a lesson in 30 minutes. Okay, so you just got out of some other class, or maybe you just got off of work and you've driven to the venue wherever you're going to have it, the teacher's house, or maybe their studio at college, or wherever it is, and you find yourself in a practice room or in your car or wherever, right? And so what are you going to do? Well, you want to warm up, right? Because if you're not warmed up, you're not going to have the best lesson. Not just not playing wise, but they're going to say a lot of things like, did you warm up today? And you're going to say, no, I didn't have time. And they're going to say, well, I can't really help you until you've done that, right? So you want to warm up, but you don't need to do a full routine that day, right? You can do that after your lesson, but you want to be as fresh as you can be for your lesson, but still warmed up. So what does that mean? Well, especially if you've been working on fundamentals, maybe fundamental production, right? So just the way that you play the trumpet the best. You're going to want to set that up again, right? And hopefully you have good notes from your last lesson, and we'll kind of get to that. But you want to make sure that whatever you worked on production-wise in your last lesson, you've as close to mastered as possible in that week's long time. It may not be mastered at all, but at least you've done as much work as a person could do in a week. And you want to set that back up and piece it back together as good as you can so that they can see what that work was, right? That's going to help your teacher give you the best next steps, instead of, well, if you didn't warm up, or maybe if you didn't work on it enough during the week, they're going to say, well, look, let's go over that again, because it's still not happening. And I guess I'll hear the rest of your materials, but as a teacher, you're thinking like, well, all I'm going to be able to think about is how bad their trumpet playing is, even if they've they really can hear the intervals and play the fingerings. So it's really important that you get the production first, right? Every practice session, really, but also right before your lesson. And so we'll do that first, and then there might be some basic components that you always do during a lesson, right? I have my trumpet journal right here, and it tells me those things for me, but I also do it with my students. So some sort of scale. Today we're going to do minor modes. Let's see, we've got high range or flexibility. High range is more of a daily thing for your routine, but flexibility of some sort, I do in every lesson. Sight reading, we're going to do that from the Bona book today. Transposition, we can do that in a number of ways. We might pick an etude to transpose or we might just combine that with excerpts, which is the other thing on the list. Should do some sort of transposition and some sort of excerpt every lesson, I think, right? And then you do your lesson material, whatever that may be. Maybe you're working on the Haydn trumpet concerto, or maybe you are preparing for a recital, contemporary unaccompanied recital. I'm doing that, but I've put it on hold for Brandenburg, so that's what I'm preparing for, and so that might be your lesson material. Or maybe you just have a bunch of etudes. Maybe you're working on the Bain book and the Botze book and the Saxa book, right? So that's what we'll do. We'll transpose the Saxa. That'll be a good exercise, and then that's basically it. And then you want to make sure that whatever you glean from that lesson, you write down in your own words so that you can recall it in your next practice session, which really should be as soon as possible after the lesson, right? If you learn something from somebody, you want to go apply it right away, because just knowing it up here, it's easy to get it kind of, twisted up there, right? You thought you understood and it made sense in the moment, but now, I'm just not really sure how I put that together. And, then you feel like you got to email them, or maybe have another interim lesson. Like, can you show me that one more time? And, you feel like I should have known from the first time, right? But if you write it down in your own words and then you go right to the practice room after your lesson, you have the best chance really of making the most out of that information, right? And hopefully your teacher plays back and forth with you so that you can physically understand in the lesson, but then you still need to go right away to a practice room, write it down in your own words so that you can recall it, not just have them recall it for you, if that makes sense, right? So we're going to do all of that stuff. I have the chat up. My dad is already saying hi, and so hello. And I'm gonna shut the browser. If it goes away, somebody in the chat tell me, right? But I don't need the browser version running in the background, I think. So if 20 seconds from now, in my time, it shut off, type it in the chat or text me, and I'll get it. Okay. And now we're just going to do all that. So let's set up our best production first. I really haven't warmed up much today. So for me, I'm going to get my C trumpet. Here we go, right? And we're going to do a little bit of lead pipe buzzing on this. That's the thing that makes my playing seem to work the best, right? I need to set up the way that I want to blow through the horn, how it's going to give me back some sort of feedback, whether you call that compression or reflection or I don't know what, right? But I want to work with the trumpet. I want to make the trumpet do work, but I also want to work with it. So here's, and if I'm doing a valve out. I've done this in other streams before, but I'm doing first valve out lead pipe buzzing, which will be about a G, sort of a flat G, and so right now it's 3:08. Like I said, let's pretend my lesson was going to be in about a half an hour, so I have 20 minutes to warm up, and I'm not going to warm up for that whole 20 minutes. I'll probably only do 15, but the longer I talk, the less warm up I get. So like I said, you want a condensed warm up that gets you in the place you need to be so that you can play your whole lesson, right? Because you might have a lot of material. So today we're going to do a lot of stuff, and that's really what a lesson should be. A lot of my students, I think, are a little spoiled because I don't really assign them as much as maybe I feel like I should, because I want them to focus on certain things, right? But you can focus on certain things per etude, and you could still have 5 or 6 or 7 etudes. And that's really not too much if you're doing things the right way in the practice room, right? So I don't want to warm up too much, otherwise I'll run out of stamina in the hour-long lesson. After my maybe 3rd or 4th etude, I'm going to be limping along, and then my teacher won't be able to help me with those last 3 or 4 etudes or excerpts or whatever they are. They'll just say, well, you sound pretty tired, I guess let's talk through them, or maybe you can sing them, or but it's always a sort of a there's a conceit there that you wish didn't happen, right? So lead pipe buzzing. way too loud on the stream. Sorry about that. I'll shut off my lapel mic for this. But so let me tell you the components of this, since it is a practice stream after all, and not just a watch this guy do stuff that you don't understand stream. What I'm doing is essentially I'm working on my turnaround, and what I want is for my breath to just go in and then out right away with no holding. I'm not going. Sometimes I do, and I'm trying not to do that, right? I also want to be ready to play when I start to turn around. So a lot of the reason that we hold our breath is because we're getting our embouchure set up. So I'm trying to just go, right, and so that it immediately turns around, and the shape of my embouchure, what I call my embouchure posture, is already ready already, right? And now I just blow, and hopefully vibration comes out, right? And if it doesn't, then either I got the air wrong, or I got the embouchure wrong, or maybe the posture also includes my angle. It could be a lot of things, but I just want to sort of zen out and focus on trying to get the turnaround to spark right into vibration with no holding. And so that takes a lot of concentration on the way in so that I'm ready on the way out. I did it again, sorry. So the other part, once I get the turnaround to turn into really good, solid vibration, there's also a qualitative assessment about the tone of the buzzing, and then I can check it on the bell. If you watch what I'm doing, I'm letting go of the valve, so instead of venting here, it goes through the whole horn, and it's still a G. I can tell by the tone of my lead pipe sound kind of what the quality of my overall production is going to be, but I don't have to, I'm guessing a little bit, right? So when I let go, I'm checking for real. And then at the end there, you heard me, I sort of bent down to a low C and checked on that. And that takes a lot of strength, but that gives you a really good solid spot for the low C to live, instead of just kind of flabbing out down there. So I'm trying to get one production that works for the whole range of the trumpet, right? Okay, so. So that's pretty good. I don't want to do this all day. I just want to get my production set up so that I feel like I can get that best. When we say production, we mean sound, but we also mean sort of the efficacy of the system, right? If I turn around the air and I get an air ball, there is no sound. So it doesn't matter how good my sound is if it doesn't happen, right? So production really is the whole apparatus and how it functions together to create something really good. But it also is about how easy it is for me to do what I need to do, right? My production isn't just single notes. I mean, I guess that's single note production, right? But I need to play all over the horn. So I'm gonna do a little bit of lip slurs here. And again, abridged, right? We've done full routines before. That's not what we're after. We're just trying to get set up so that we can play our lesson really great. So, and we're gonna do flexibility in our lesson as well. So it's the same kind of thing. If I'm gonna do some flexibility, and at least in my lessons, my students know, generally speaking, ahead of time what that flexibility exercise is going to be, and they should have been doing it all week. So in that case, I would do the flexibility exercise explicitly that I'm about to go into my lesson and do. I would just do a little less of it and make sure that I've set it up well, right? So, and maybe there's a way that I have to set things up going up to that flexibility exercise, especially if that one is very difficult for me. So what I planned to do today is one of those for me. I wanted to do one of the later violins. Let's do number 15. Ooh, boy. Yeah, number 15. So now I'm not going to go straight at it, though, because there's two things in this. This has cross-partial slurs, right? So in other words, we skip over a partial. It also has normal partial slurs so that we don't. And then it has an octave slur where we skip over two partials, right? So I know kind of what that landscape looks like, and so I'm going to start with simpler things and work my way up to it, and then maybe do a few of them, and then I'll wait for the lesson part, right? So again, we're just warming up for our lesson right now. I'll let you know when we get to the lesson, and then we're still just going to be practicing. But all right, so these start, we can just do them one at a time. We start. Oops, I keep forgetting to turn off my mic. It's a new thing for me, so eventually I'll figure it out. In fact, I'm not going to have to. I ordered a new wireless mic, so hopefully I won't. I'll probably use the same button, but I won't be tethered like this, so that I can still go back and get some other books or whatever I need. So in the future, these should be a little bit smoother because of the wireless mic that should be in the mail. I think it comes today. Today, maybe. Maybe I could have waited. Maybe it's out on my porch right now. Anyway. Get a little bit of my faster slurs, what we call Vince slurs, right? Hi, Dad, again. Just trying to get this set up. So I haven't played the actual exercise yet. Maybe I'll try that just for you guys. I know I'm not quite ready to do it, but if I'm a student, I may not know where that boundary is quite as well as I do right now. And so then I might try it, and then I can go back, right, and fix it. So not super terrible. I got all the things that I mean, I got all the partials right, and I sounded okay. I really need to sound a lot better, I think, on those, but I did them and they felt easy. And those are two critical components, right? That I got the right things that I asked for, and that it wasn't killing me to do it. And then I should be able to expand the sound a little bit as I go on. So I really, for me, that means lowering the back of my tongue, right? And how do I know that without trying it out? Well, if you've been here for a couple of the streams in the past, that's something that we discovered the other day, right? That I needed to lower the back of my tongue a little bit, and that seemed to get a better result overall. And so I just know that. And I also did it a little bit. I cheated. I did it a little bit during that last one near the end, and if you listen back, you'll hear it opens up as I go on. So let's do another one. Let's try to start with that nice open tongue position. So it was okay again, but you noticed it wasn't quite as clean. And larger downward slurs, I tend to lose a little bit of the sound. So that's what I'm gonna calibrate now. little shaky, but that was getting better, right? So I'm just going to do that much. I'm going to calibrate those things, right? And then I'm going to leave it for the lesson. So it might be one of the first things we do in the lesson time. Okay, so I have 9 more minutes before lesson time, right? And right now I'm going to rest, right? I've got some water here. I'm not going to overplay right before my lesson, which I know I said already we're going to do a shortened warm-up, but it's easy still to be like, gotta play, I gotta look at this, I gotta look at that, right? During this time, though, besides drinking some water, which is an excellent idea for anybody at any time in any profession, right? Unless you're already drinking too much. But if you're interested, the formula that most people go by is for hydration, adequately being hydrated, is your body weight in pounds. Take that number. So for me, that's 155 right now. It really should be lower, but let's call it 155, right? And it's half that number, right? So that's, what is that? It's going to be 77 and a half, right? I think. Something like that. Let's call it 80, right? Just a little over. It's going to be that many ounces of water. So this is a 40-ounce hydro flask, right? And if I drink 2 of these a day, then I am adequately hydrated. But you need to take it over the course of the day, not just all at once. Although, as long as you can do it sort of over 2 or so hours, that's fine. You just don't want to chug it because a lot of it's not going to get in your body before your body rejects it. Anyway, all right, so hydration, excellent. I'm also going to go over my lesson materials, right? And as a matter of fact, I have to unclip here and get one of my books. I decided I'm going to play Harris and Vernon Reynolds etudes for my lesson material today. So I've got to get those books, and we'll look at them together. And first of all, I mean, this is a little unscripted. We're going to choose which etudes I have practiced, and then we're going to look at the hard parts while we're resting. So, one moment. Okay, so we got our books. Let's look to see which Harris etude we're going to play today. I have an idea of which one I want to do. Oh, did I learn? I did. Hey, Dad. So, you know your favorite, I don't know if it's your favorite, one of my favorite Harris etudes, number 4. It's Gavinier Matinee, number 7. I found out what it was, finally. I don't remember when I did that, probably 2 years ago at Interlaken. But we could do Rodet, number 22. That's not the one I was thinking of, though. No. This is my other. You know, I don't know what wireless lavalier mic brand and model I ordered. I mostly ordered the pack, like it might have been Rode. It was a good brand. I just can't remember now. It wasn't. I was trying to go for the cheapest one that I thought would work for my setup, and so it doesn't have a long range or anything like that. It's just a little battery pack that you put on that I could plug this one into, or it comes with one as well. I thought about getting I think it's Rode. It's like a little square that you clip onto your lapel. It's not very little. I mean, it's like 1.5 inches square, and then but I wasn't really able to understand how the other half hooks up to things, and I think it's mostly made for camera, so that I could hook it up to the camera here, but my camera is not part of the audio setup at all. I have a soundboard down here, and I was worried that it might not work. So even though that one was cheaper, and I've seen it work very well on other people's YouTube videos, I went with the standard battery pack version of like Sennheiser or Rode or something. It was one of the cheaper ones that was still an actual brand name that I recognize, and that, not that that matters. The big brands all make cheap junk, and some of the cheaper sounding brands actually make really high quality stuff. You really just have to know specifically about a product. But for me, it just is it's gonna release me from this chain. That's all. So anyway, let's find the etude we want to do. I'm not going to pick one that I'm going to sight read or learn from scratch, right? That's not necessarily what we're after. But we will pick one that we need to work on so that we can, in fact, work on it a little bit. No. I'll stay in the front half of the book. I really like some of these octave slur ones. That might be a good way to end today's stream. Yeah, let's do number 12, which is Rode 19. So we'll do that one. And what are the hard parts of this? Well, the whole thing, really. The technique of octave slurs is something that we've already sort of worked out with the violin book. And I'm sort of choosing this on purpose, right? Because if I'm the teacher in this scenario, I've assigned slurs that work up to an octave, but that are otherwise very lyrical. So that might tie in with an etude or a piece that has a lot of upward octave slurs, which are awkward, and that might be a way to work on the etude, so that I'm already working on the technique. Then in the Vernon Reynolds book, let's see what we want to do in this one. I'm going to run out of time for my warm-up, but this is okay, because it's hard for me not to pick number 7 all the time, because it's such a mean sounding etude. Well, I'll tell you what I need to work on is my fifths, but I don't know this etude very well, so I shouldn't pick it. I should have already worked on it, right? Oh, there's a mean one. It's so hard to pick out of these books because every one of them you go, no, that's too hard. That's all right, well, we can always do number 25, number 26, number 27. Yeah, you know what, let's do number 27. And that way, because this one I know I don't know all of, and I can practice it for you, right? So, all right, so we've just hit the half-hour mark. What am I going to do right before I go into my lesson that's part of my warm-up? Like I said, I need to look at the hard parts, maybe, and we'll do that in the lesson, so to speak, because I'm going to practice these things. And I'll just start with, this is what I look at right before, and then we'll actually look at it together. But so those are my two etudes. I also need to do minor modes, right? We haven't played any scales. So, and for the purposes of my quote-unquote lesson, right, I'm literally just doing up and down, because as you may have noticed in the scales 2 days ago when I did the live stream, I'm not very good at minor modes. And so we're just going to work, oh, my valve is going. Every time I start streaming, you know, I don't think it needs, might need something, okay. But yeah, the minor modes still mess me up really bad. So I'm going to practice all of the C minor modes. So what does that mean? Well, the minor modes are like the major modes, where if you stay in a key, then you've got C major, D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, G Mixolydian, A natural minor or Aeolian, and B Locrian, right? So there are those 7 different modes that are already inherent in the interval structure of the major scale. They just start in different places. Well, the minor modes are constructed the same way, where I've got, and they don't have names the same way. They probably do in the jazz world. And it's very funny, but the classical theory world and the jazz theory world have different names for exactly the same things. And so sometimes I know the jazz name, and sometimes I know the classical name. So there might be names for these harmonic minor or melodic minor modes, but and I know some of them from classical theory too. So for instance, all the harmonic minor modes, right, are just basically, if I do them all starting on C, then there is a minor scale, a regular harmonic minor scale that belongs to, right? So C harmonic minor, first mode minor, is just C minor, right? We'll play it on C trumpet for now. Not too hard, right? But then if I start on C again, and this time I'm starting on the second note of the minor scale, so that makes it B flat minor, right? Is the key, in other words. And that might sound really exotic to you, but if I add the seventh at the bottom, it's just B flat minor, but starting on the second note, right? And now if I do that one more time, now I'm in A minor, right? Because C is the minor third of A minor. So this one's not too hard either. And I like to play the relevant section that's sort of weird over again, just to get my ear around it, right? So that's A minor. So that was C third mode minor, is one way to say it. This one could be minor Lydian Mixolydian, but it's not. It's just fourth mode minor, right? That's in G minor, starting on C. Now we're going to do F minor, starting on C. That has a very exotic sound to it, like a Jewish minor, which is, I'm not sure that that's a culturally sensitive name anymore, but it has that Phrygian sound at the beginning, right? But then a major third sound. Right? It has a very sort of Middle Eastern sound to it, even though that's not really accurate. Middle Eastern sounds usually have a different scale system altogether. But that's one of the things that we associate in movies or whatever. If you watch Indiana Jones, you'll hear a lot of that kind of stuff. Again, not particularly culturally sensitive, but we have to connect it with some things that we know, and then we can be better about the way that we behave ourselves. And then the rest is just a natural minor, right? So there you go. That's F. That's C fifth mode minor, which is F minor starting on C. Now we're going to do sixth mode, which is E minor starting on C. Really exotic, right? And I mean, you can hear the augmented second just keeps moving down every time until now it's at the beginning. So, well, we only have one more place to put it, and that's at the end. So now this is going to be C seventh mode minor, which is going to be D flat minor, right? And I'm not sure that I'm saying those right. If somebody has a better resource for me, I actually need to look these things up before I start telling people what they are. But anyway, so here we go, D flat minor, starting on C. So how would I practice these? Well, let's go through the melodic minor scales. And I do melodic minor, I do the raised 6th and 7th of melodic minor both directions because that helps you practice for 7 alt chords, right? And in a jazz context, if you play up a half step melodic minor from whatever it says, if it says D7 alt, then you altered is what alt means. Then it means that it has both types of fifths and both types of 7. So basically, that you can play either the natural or the diminished versions of those. And so what a lot of people, the trick that a lot of people use is just to play up a half step melodic minor, but then you need to play melodic on the way down too, right? I mean, not necessarily, I guess. If it's both types and those are both. But anyway, the point is it helps get your ear into that key, and then you can always just play natural minor. That's part of a major scale. Those are easy if you know your majors. So how would I practice these? Now that we're let's call this the beginning of the lesson because we're only 7 minutes after. So now I warmed up, right? I got my production good. I did some of my lesson material very lightly, and then I got into the scales. So let's say that I go in and my teacher, or me in this case, says, okay, let's start with scales. Let's hear those minor scales. And so what I would do is I need to get to the point where I can just play them without looking at a page, which I'm not ready to do yet, but where I can just play them, all right? Or I said we do melodic. With a good production, right? So that's just normal melodic minor, first mode. Now if I do second mode, that's again starting on the second scale degree but transposing it back down to C. Then I get Frigidorian, which is flat 2, sharp 6, right? So in my lesson, I would need to be able to just go. I need to just play them down. That's my goal. So how do I get to that goal? And again, I need to measure, how far away from that goal am I? Very far for me. So let's practice this right now. So how would I do it? Well, I need to get the sounds in my ear, right? So I'm looking at this sheet. It's just those scales written. I know you can't see that very well. Written out, up and down, or just up really. But right, I can follow backwards with my eyes, for a scale at least. So what I need to do is get off that page pretty quickly, right? So okay, melodic minor, normal first mode we're not going to worry about. Second mode and down gets progressively harder for me. And so I'm going to use you guys as my I'm not looking at the page, right? Because I can't really see, even out of the corner of my eye, I can't see here. With any kind of detail. I can see that there are notes on a page, but I can't see where they are, right? So you guys are going to help me out. And I would practice them up and down first, and then in thirds if possible, and then I would try to play some sort of scalar pattern like a Clark kind of thing on them. So Yeah. All right. So I'm playing around now on these scales. It's a lot of playing, but I do actually need to play it. I can sort of do this if I wanted to sing instead. I can do it, but I might very easily could get the wrong fingerings and not hear that I've made a mistake because I'm singing. So I could get off by one or something. So I really do need to play these. And so I play around them that way. And then when I go back to drill them, I would practice singing them because I need to know the interval structure at the beginning, well, really all the way through, and memorize the sound of it, right? That's my goal. So again, I'm sorry I keep forgetting to turn off the microphone, so I'm sure that's blowing everybody out. I'll get it eventually. But so, and then I do that with the next one, right? So let's try that a little bit. Actually, let's skip to the last one because that's really hard for me. Seventh mode minor on either one is really mean, but so the trick, again, I forgot. The trick to melodic minor is that there's a whole tone scale and a diminished scale, and they're right next to each other, right? So really what I need to do for all of these, if I want a quick trick to all of this, I need to be able to tell where that barrier is on each of the different scales. And it's not that hard to do, right? If I look at it, I need to find a place where the first whole step happens and then all, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 whole steps in a row. So 5 notes, all 5 notes, well, I need to figure out where the first one of those is. And the greatest news is that it just moves backwards, just like the minor third, the augmented second from harmonic minor moves backwards, the whole tone scale moves backwards as well. So on the first one, regular melodic minor, if this was more interactive, I'd give you a chance to find it, right? But it starts on the third scale degree, right? The E flat in C minor, and then I go E flat, F, G, A, and B. That's a whole tone scale, right? And then the other 3 notes, right? Even into, so they overlap a little bit, right? The other 3 notes are just a sort of diminished scale, including the notes that surround them, right? So that means, and so in different versions, the diminished scale part is going to be the fully played, and in other parts like this, it's not really significant to even talk about. So I'm just playing the first 3 notes of minor, and then whole tone, and then the tonic again, right? In the next one, it's going to start on the second scale degree, and that means that the last 3 notes are going to be like a diminished scale, or octatonic scale, if you will. So if I always continue on, again I forgot, if I always continue on and do 2 octaves or an octave and a half or whatever, then I'm always going to play some version of whole tone and some version of octatonic and then back to some version of whole tone, right? And they're always going to be the same number of notes in order. So that's what I'm really exploiting that to try to figure all these out. Let's try the next one. Where does it start? It's going to start on the first note, right? So I'm going to play. This is third mode minor should be the easiest. Melodic minor should be the easiest because it's whole tone and then diminished. gets harder. Fourth and fifth are going to split them almost evenly, right? So fourth, it's like Lydian, right? And then the second half, that's just diminished. Excuse me. That's just diminished, right? So it's Lydian, kind of the first four notes, right? And then the next part's kind of diminished, but that's why this one we call Lydian Mixolydian, because it's a sharp 4 and a flat 7. So that one's from my old scale sheet, so I kind of know that one already. So we might think of fourth mode minor as Lydian Mixolydian, and then fifth mode minor. What's that going to be? Well, guess what? It's like two different scales, kind of. It's like C major, right? C, D, E, F, G, and then we do flat 6, flat 7. A flat, B flat, C, which sounds like natural minor. So it's like major minor. Or whatever you decide, right? And this is why we renamed 4 and 5, because it's harder to pick out the whole tone portion and the octatonic portion, because it's split over the gap, right, over the octave. So, but then in number 6 we start to get back to it, right? So that one starts with octatonic, right, and then goes to whole tone. It's sort of the opposite of number 3. And that makes sense because we've worked our way back far enough that we get most of the most of the whole tone portion happens at the end. And then number 7 is literally that, right? We get the half step first octatonic. And that's another way to look at this, right? Is if the whole step comes first in number 6, then the half step must come first in number 7. And because we're moving it back one, right? Now that's not true of some of the others, because numbers 3, 4, and 5 all have a whole step at the beginning, and that's because we're in the whole tone section for the first 2 notes. So I know I'm going crazy on the theory here, but that's I promised that I would show you how I'd work on this, and it's a good blend of sort of using your smarts to get your mind around the sounds and fingers, but then also using your being responsible, writing it out, and having something to work from, and then trying to hear those sounds and get off the page, right? And playing a lot. So last one, 7. And you'll see me glance back down at the page every once in a while. When I'm not sure, I'd rather look at it and get it right instead of just try to guess. And that just means that I'm not hearing that next interval well enough. So I would do this until I could play all of them memorized, even if I'm using some trick in my mind of like, oh, right, it's whole tone and then diminished. Okay, fine. As long as I know where that is, I can play that sound off the page, and that's one step closer to just play by ear. Okay? So that's my scales portion. We can knock it off. Minor modes, check. And normally I'd be using a timer, but in a lesson I wouldn't, so we're not going to do it. So there's our scales. Now, what haven't we done yet? Violin. Well, we said we did it a little bit. Let's quickly go through it. And in your lesson, you're just going to do them, right? You might do them back and forth a little. I'm sorry if I've been sharp this whole time. So you have to push your tuning slide in for the lead pipe buzzing. But normally you just do them down, and in at least lessons with me, I just say, let me hear number 15, and then you do it. So Why not? Let's try it. My teacher, if there was one, might have said, do those all with the same fingerings, or it's okay to change them. In my opinion, it's okay to change them, but I like to switch it up. So I'll do some of them with the false fingerings. That's just a natural trumpet exercise, and then I'll do the right fingerings for other ones. All right, so how'd I do, I guess? Some of them were not super great, but depends on what your goal is, right? Depends on what your value system is for what we're trying to get done. For me, I'm trying to keep an even tone. I'm trying to stay in control. I don't want it to get sort of flabby in the low register or like tight in the high register. I want it to sound the same and feel like it's working the same. And so I need to challenge myself to do simple but still skipped slurs in order to make sure that it gives me a place to work on that, right? So I would call that a success in the sense that I could show then my teacher that stuff. And I'm going to be my teacher later. I'm going to watch back this stream and I'm going to criticize my own playing and take notes and see what I can learn from it, and then I'll have a better plan for next week, okay? Or even just tomorrow. So that's all we're going to do with violin. Now, we've got to do some sight reading and some transposition. We didn't pick an excerpt because we sort of ran out of time during our warm-up, but I'm going to use the Bona book today for sight reading. I'm going to switch to B-flat trumpet also, just because we haven't done that yet, and normally almost no lesson would go without any B-flat trumpet. I haven't played this one yet. I haven't played a lot of these. There's tons and tons of etudes in here, and a lot of them are not very long, but it's great. It's great for sight reading because it's mostly rhythm based. So what I mean by that, there are nice little etudes that are in different keys, right? And sometimes explicitly, and then there are also exercises in there that help you play just basics better. It's a really wonderful book. Let me tell you what it's called. Complete Method for Rhythmical Articulation. So you tell me if that's the right way to say that, but anyway, we're going to do number 90 on page 28 today, and I'm going to sight read it, right? So I promise you I've never looked at this, and I'm not going to look at it for very long, but I am going to look at it, and I'll talk to you about what I'm looking at. We'll give myself a timer. I'll make it count up so we know we take our time talking about it, and then we can find out how much time that was. Normally in a gig, you would have, you might show up 20 minutes early and the book's on the stand, and you have 20 minutes to look at 10 or 15 pieces, right? So that's about a minute and a half or 2 minutes per piece, or maybe as little as a minute. So we try to stay within a minute if we can for these little short things. But anyway, all right, so here I go. Most people, I'm going to stop it immediately. Most people, when I ask them how to sight read, I say, what do you need to know? And they say, time signature, key signature, I don't know. And I say, no, that's how you read music. That's not what you, that's what you need to be able to understand to read any music, whether you're sight reading or not. So that's not wrong, but those things don't help you sight read. They just help you read, period. So what do you need to know to sight read better? And that's going to be, I need to make sure I look at the rhythms and I look at the patterns, right? Rhythms and patterns, so that even if I've never played it before, maybe I have enough time to learn it right now, what it sounds like, what the fingerings are, practice it in my head a little bit, maybe even literally practice if I'm on a gig, but it hasn't started yet, right? A rehearsal or something. So I'm going to look for the hardest looking rhythms, and that's what I'm going to, and architecture of the line. That's what I'm going to look at. Not the key. The key signature, yes, is important. The time signature, in this case, 12/8 in A flat major, or I guess could be F minor, right? I need to figure those things out quickly, but that's just how I read music. So here we go. Now we're actually in it. And the first lick doesn't look bad, but it's bad enough. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Da, 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 da. And we got to figure out how fast we want to go. Yeah, so I think if I take a little time to work on that lick, everything else is probably doable. Let's see if there's any funny rhythms. This book really loves to do funny rhythms. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. That's the second measure, right? Nailed me right away. So, and now we're still within a minute. I better just play it, right? Let's see how it goes. Oh, I don't need to time that though. Almost got me at the end. I should have looked at that last bar because it has too many accidentals in it. And if I just had 10 more seconds, I could have found that and looked at it. But that wasn't too bad. We sight read. We did okay. I'm going to call it a win-ish, right? I'll listen back and... Oh, and so, okay, well, sorry. We haven't talked about what I would do with that, right? Because this isn't a real lesson. This is both what would happen in the lesson. So that's what would happen in the lesson. I'd have 10 seconds or, a minute to look at it, and then I'd play it, and that would be the end of that. We'd maybe talk about what things went wrong. So what went wrong? Well, I didn't look at that last measure, so I need to. But there was also a rhythm that I played incorrectly because I didn't look at it. I assumed that because the intervallic structure was the same, that it was the same rhythm as the preceding bar, and it was this one. The first bar goes like, but this is the second bar of the piece. Okay, and then the consequent sort of bar that's just like it is on the fourth line, second bar. Right, so I didn't catch that rhythm change fast enough, and it's because my eyes weren't moving to the next thing. I was worried about da 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 da. I was worried about the D flats especially. I kept thinking, is it D flat? I think it's D flat. So that means two things. I need to practice in the key of A flat more. I need to play etudes in the key of A flat major. Not just, in other words, not just the scale, but I need to play etudes. I'll get my Saxa book. Oh, that's what we said we'd do. Let's see if we can find the Saxa for our transposition. And maybe we can find one that we transpose into the key of A flat major, right? I mean, we certainly can. The question is, is that far away from the key that it starts in or not, right? And I would have practiced my transposition. So let's pick one that I actually know. That's minor. That's minor too. This one I don't know. But anyway, so that's what, so I would actually go back and I could practice in the etude, right? I could practice the things that went wrong. We just did one. I need to practice the ending. Let's do that. So, and what do I mean by practice the, this is my sight reading, right? Well, I sight read it, and now I can learn from the stuff that I made mistakes by learning it as if I had it all week, right? So I might ask for a copy, or usually when I do sight reading for my students, it is a copy already, and I could say take that home and learn it as if it is your etude for next week, right? And sometimes that's how I assign things, is I just say, read this etude for your sight reading, let's do that next week, which is not very nice of me, but it is if you consider what you're learning. So anyway, that's what I would do there. Now let's take a look. Put that away. Let's take a look at this saxa. All right, and I thought I had one picked out. I see. I don't know that one still. I need to pick a nice major saxa that I actually know that I can transpose to this A flat major key that we've talked about. I know one that I could do earlier on. There's so many of them that are nice minor ones though. Okay, let's number 41 is not a bad one. It's in the key of C major, kind of. A lot of secondary dominants, but are implied from the melody. But we're going to try to play it. So if it's in C, I need to play it down a major third. I'm just looking through it to see if I can do that. There's a couple of places I cannot, but I think I can mostly do it. Okay, so now for my lesson, it needs to be, what does it need to be? We're going to do a part of it. I'm not going to waste your time learning a whole 2-page etude, or I guess full page etude. It's a page plus 2 lines. But I'll show you what it needs to sound like, even though I'm not going to play it in A flat right now. For the lesson, right, I need it to be done. And I don't mean like, oh, I know all the notes, but I can't really play them fast enough. I mean done, right? Allegro, it says. And it's a long etude with a repeat, and I should be prepared to do the repeat or not. And maybe I'll ask if I'm not sure, right? But so I know this one in C, or as written, I should say, pretty well. So I'll show you what it should sound like by the lesson, and then we'll go back and we'll practice it in A flat. Sorry. So you need to have at least that amount of confidence in the fingerings, in the sounds, in the rhythms, right? There's not a lot of rhythm going on here. In the dynamics, every detail, that confident, that fast, right? So now, we're not ready for that on an A flat, but let's try to get there. Okay, so I'm gonna turn all this down so it doesn't blow out too much. Actually, I guess these are fine. It's this one. So I'll just try to talk loudly so that I don't have to keep going back and forth. So what are we going to do? Well, first, in a lot of books, they give you, in the Bain, the Bain book, they'll give you the whole relevant scale right before. So we could start with that, right? Just play around with it, right? But now I'm going to need to actually practice this. And if I'm smart, I'll do it in a smart way, right? So whatever that means for me. So for me, Gabriel, I'm going to work backwards, and I'm going to start from the end of where I want to go. So we're going to practice the same amount that I just played for you, and we're going to see if we can get it up to that speed. In fact, I'll time it. Let's see how long it really takes, because we know the sound of it, right? And I could start that way. I could start with, I'm going to learn it as written so I know the sounds, and then I'm just going to start on a different note. That would be a perfectly valid way. It can be confusing if you really are tied to your fingers, and I am a little bit, so I don't usually do that. But I can sing it da, 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 without any fingerings, and then I can figure out what fingerings to use, right? So anyway, I'm going to start at the end. Like you said, down a major third. There's one note right away. I know I can't play a low A down a major third. I guess I can do. I'll try to do a low F. We'll try to do low F there. Okay. So, but that's not yet. The first three notes are the last three notes, which are E flats for us, right? G was. Just get those really nice and good. Now that doesn't seem hard, and of course it isn't. But I'm going to add now the chromatic scale that goes before it. Okay, now I'm going to add the bar before it. So that was just the 2 beats before. I'm going to add the whole bar, but now I'm going to start. Now there's more to it, so I'm going to start singing. Da 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 da. And as embarrassing as that is, it helped me get it the first time. Now, da 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 dum dum dum. Now I'm up to tempo. It's going to take me a while to do this, so I might try to do larger chunks and just kind of trust, like cross my fingers and kind of go with it. But normally I'd work through the whole piece backwards this way. Da 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 da. Ba ba ba. Oh, this one's hard. That's the sound. Da ba 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 bum ba. It's really hard to do because you've got an A flat and a D both in the same line. So ba ba. You gotta kind of do this. Da ba. Sorry. Ba 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 bum. Always with my best production though when I do play. All right. Da 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 da. Oh boy. I keep trying to like do it like a trombone, like put it back out. That's not going to help. So I feel pretty good about the ending part now. I don't need to play it over and over again necessarily. That bar is going to kill me, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it right now. I'm going to see if I can back up a few bars, and then I'll worry about just the one bar if it's still a problem at the end of the process, because it's the only bar that I'm going to have like a funny fingering for. I could just sort of look at it and see that, right? So that's like about half tempo. I could have sang it instead, but like I said, I'm going to do bigger chunks and sort of trust my instincts a little bit more, and just see if I can goose it, so to speak, right? So we could go all the way back to the beginning and see how far we get and identify all the bad bars and then work on them, right? So a little bit under tempo is a good idea. I'll turn this off for this one because we're going to play a lot more. Almost there. We just about got to where we just left off. But it's those D flats, right? I already knew that those D flats were going to be a problem because when I sight read, I kept second guessing my D flats. I just didn't want to play them. And now that's even more apparent now, especially because of the presence of F sharp written, which is a D natural. So now I have to really know by ear what the sound is of the whole line. If it's in A flat still, it's a D flat. If it's implying this sort of B flat instead, then it's going to be a D natural, right? Okay, so let's do it a little faster and a little more. And also, you can notice my low register is not great. Yeah, because I need to work on it more. And guess what? We didn't warm up the low register, right? We did a little bit of lip slurs, but we really didn't get down super far. I mean, we did, but I didn't really learn to place that. And that might be something I need to work on all week. See? Okay, so that took me 7 minutes and 46 seconds to get to, I would say, a very slow but passable. Not passable in my lesson, but that only took 7 minutes, and I would have done that right after my lesson, right? So let's talk about the aftermath. We're not done with the lesson yet, but let's talk about, if this was the transposition, right? As soon as I got this assignment, so let's make an assignment. Well, let's pretend like we made this assignment, right? Because we've just done the work. We don't need to do it again for a different etude. But let's say I got assigned number 40, page 30, number 41, Saxa, down a major third, so in the key of A flat major, right? Okay, I wrote that down in my notebook. Fantastic. And as soon as that lesson is over, I'm going to run to the practice room. I'm going to write down all of the trumpet playing things that I learned in that lesson, right? But I'm also going to open up all of the etudes that I've now been assigned, and I'm going to look at them and see how much work that's really going to take me. Because if it doesn't take me much work, then I can either put it off until later in the week, or I can do it right now or maybe tomorrow and just be done with it and just have fun playing it the rest of the week, which is what I recommend. But if it's hard like this one is, I'm going to need to work on, I've learned already, I need to work on my, like just coming in soft on a low A flat. And we already know this from all of my practice, right? Every time I do a live stream, if it starts below A or below actually, I have trouble with it because that's just, my dentition and the way that I play, I don't work on that enough to make sure, and that's my fault, right? I'm at a disadvantage because of the way I'm built, but that's not an excuse. So I need to work on it more, right? But so I know I need to work on my low register coming in soft and staccato on a low A flat specifically, I also need to just be like, feel totally comfortable in the key of A flat major, and when it's not an A flat major, when it's pretending to be in B flat for a little while, right? Or sorry, it's not B flat either. It's, is it F? What is it? A flat should be, yeah, E flat. Sorry, it should be E flat. That's what I meant to say. Major. All right, 2 flats is what I, anyway, all right. Or no, 3 flats. Jeez Louise. The A flats stay. But anyway, that's not where my mind is. So I've learned a lot just by playing this for 7 minutes or 8 minutes almost, and just kind of working on it. And now I know what I need to do. I could finish this etude by tomorrow now if I want, and then I'd be done with it all week. And I could play musically. God forbid that I would play my etude musically in my lesson that was really just about transposition, right? Yeah, the goal is that it's also transposed, but it's always been music, right? That's what we want to remember. All right, so we've played, we're flexibility, check. We've done the Bona book, check. We've done transposition, check. That was Saksa 41. Now we need to do an excerpt. So I could pick an excerpt at random, or I could pick an excerpt that I know. And again, why are we doing this in every lesson? Because there's a million excerpts to learn, and they help us learn very specific things about our playing that are maybe excerpts are really great at showing off precisely 1 or 2 things at a time that you either can or can't do, right? Let's pick, how about Rhapsody Espagnole? Why not, right? We get our C trumpet out. I assigned this to one of my students, and I did it just close enough to jury material time that I think they got away with never doing it. So next semester, whoever you are, you better have this Rhapsody Espagnole down, right? But no, and again, this would have been assigned and practiced over the week. So again, as soon as I got this assignment, I would run to the practice room, and the first thing I would do is I'd get out the music, right? Make sure I got the right piece. Make sure I have all the equipment. This one needs a straight mute, which I don't have, so we probably won't play that part. No, it starts with a mute, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. We'll skip the muted part for now, just because we can. But if I'm playing the whole thing, I'm going to need that mute. I got my C trumpet, right? So if I had to go to my locker to get it, okay, I did it. And now I'm going to look it up on my phone or my computer. I'm going to get the best recording with the highest fidelity that I possibly can, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to listen to the whole piece, right? Rhapsody Espagnole is not that long. It's probably 16 minutes, I guess. I can't remember it all. But most of Ravel's stuff is sort of between 8 and 20 minutes, which is a big time frame. But I have 20 minutes, right? I could listen to the whole album. I could listen to an hour-long Ravel CD and just get into it, right? But I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna watch as I'm listening to Rhapsody Espagnole. I'm gonna try to figure out, like, well, what's the hard part here? And really, for this excerpt, it's all pretty hard, but it's right at the top, and then it's all these triple tonguing parts, right? That's what's hard about it. And then that's the other thing I know I'm gonna have to practice. Now, my teacher might have told me that, so I know that going in, but I'm gonna look at it. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to just kind of finger along, not with the sound, not with the recording yet, but I'm just going to sort of get the physical stuff down as I'm just listening to the overall sound of the piece. And then once I hear the excerpt, okay, great. I'm going to write down that time so I can come back, and then and listen to it over and over again. I'm going to rewind it a little bit, and now I'm going to just watch. I'm going to listen and watch. I'm not even going to try fingerings, right? And you're going to hear that, and you're going to go, oh, geez, that's, and you might say immediately, I can't triple tongue that fast. Okay, well, then you know it's your job to triple tongue that fast on these notes by the end of the week. So you might immediately get out the Arbin's book, right? And just start working on that stuff, right? And instead you might just start working on this, and you might get pretty far. But you have to come up with a plan on day one, right? Not even day one, day 0. Your lesson just happened this past hour, right? And so now, when we're not quite to the point where your lesson would be over, but like I said, we're combining. So you just had a lesson, now you know exactly what to work on, and so now you can get started, and you're still on day 0. You haven't even gotten to day 1 of the week, right? In a different way, if you're not going to practice the day of your lesson because you want to be fresh for it, then you are on day 1. But still, from the first chance you get, you want to have a plan. Okay, so my plan for Rapide Espagnol is to make sure that my articulation is correct and my fingerings are really confident first. And I have to make a plan for how I'm going to tongue everything, right? Am I going to go taka taka ta taka ta taka ta ta on the taka 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 ta? Is that how I'm going to do it, or I'm going to go? Let's see, taka taka ta taka ta or to taka ta taka ta taka ta taka ta. Right? Is that going to be taka taka ta taka ta taka ta taka ta? And I might have to try it both ways and figure it out. So okay, that's one thing. Let's do that. Yeah, we'll do the top. We'll do the first part. I'm doing it down an octave for now. I just want to get the pattern right. I think I like ta-ta-ta, right? And I'm saying it a lot, right? You'll notice right away. So I've got a plan. Right? I'm going to write it down just so I don't forget. Excerpt is Rhapsody Espagnol. Right? And I'm going on one part, I'm going taka taka ta. Oh, sorry, tataka. Taka 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 taka. Right? Taka 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 ta. I just wrote TK, so I don't forget. All right, that's all. Now there's some other parts here too. The very beginning of the excerpt, it is in the top 50, so it's not the beginning of the piece or anything. I'm gonna have to clean that up, but how am I gonna do it? Am I gonna go ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, right? All right, well, I'll tell you what I'm not gonna do is that. Ta-ka-ta-ta-ta-ta is not gonna work for me. So ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Now it's cleaned up. Now I just need to be able to do it consistently. I can go back and do that. So again, ta-ta-ka, right? And I use both. I really do use both of them. I try to be able to do it interchangeably, but sometimes just the architecture of the line versus what you're used to and how you learn. I learn TTK first, so that's usually the most confident one for me. I heard Joe Bergstaller work with one of my students about different multiple tonguing tricks, and his point was that it should always be the cleanest articulation that you can make, right? So whatever that is right now, that's the one you're going to use right now. And then you can work on the one that you wish you could have used and make that cleaner, and then maybe you'll be able to use it later, right? So I like that. That's an oversimplification of what he said, but I like that in principle. So now we need to be able to also do it right off. And we might sometimes use a different articulation, so we need to check. We also might consider some other trumpets here, right? What if we did this on B flat trumpet? What would that look like? Well, it would be E flat, F, E flat, C, B flat, C, E flat. Let's try it. Let's see if it's any better, right? If it's cleaner, I should do it. Unless I need to switch back to C too quickly. But the first one is worse. I'd have to really work on it. I'm going to do it on C for now because I think it's just about even. And I don't want to play in... I mean, it may make the whole piece easier. Let's try some more stuff and then we'll make our decision. Sorry. I already hate this because it's got C sharps in it, so we're not going to do that. But that was worth a shot, right? And later on, if I've already determined that B flat trumpet makes some things easier, I might use both of them for a real performance. But in my lesson, I'm probably just going to do C. So, okay. So we've identified the triple tonguing parts. We've worked on them. Now we've got this little solo thing. And I do need a mute, so let me go get one. Hold on. Go to the big mute closet. There we go. These books, we haven't worked on them yet. Okay, so without spending too much more time on the excerpt, right? We need to be able to play all of it, and so I need to, if I'm practicing this right after my lesson and I'm trying to figure out what parts I need, we've done that now. Now I need to actually get to work and do it, right? So again, we'll put a timer on. This isn't going to take hardly any time at all, I think. So, and I'm not going to start at the beginning, all right? I'm going to start at the parts that I know need work. Oops, that's louder. I don't want it to be logy in the low register, but I also don't want to pound it out. It gets softer. All right, so that's what I got to work on. See, so we've got that worked out. Now I need to be able to just play it straight away, right? After some other things too, right? So let's do. One, two. I always forget this is mute out, so I need to mark that. It's over a page break for me in the book, so I need to write it before the page break. And I also need to be ready for it, right? So if I was playing this in an orchestra, I'd write that after the first muted part. I'd have a bunch of like mute ready and ready to take out mute stuff, right? But so far, up until the muted solo, it's pretty good, right? So here we keep going. Okay, so we've played that's the main part of the excerpt. The other part we didn't play yet, but we can try to do that. We've basically worked out all the parts that we're going to work out for it. We just need to put it into practice again, right? I would still go back and work on my muted solo a little bit. I didn't like the way it sounded. I might choose a different mute, right? But we got the mute out and we played those G's on top of the staff. I would also want to tune those. But here we go. The second excerpt here. This is the, what do we decide to do? Oh boy. Nah, still not great. So there's a spot, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't mute. There's a spot where you have to know the piece well enough. If I didn't, it says in parentheses molto ritardando on those last notes that I just played, right? But am I supposed to do it if it's in parentheses? That's editorial in this book, right? Well, yeah, most conductors take those two notes really far back. It's very this sort of Ravel paint, sort of expressionist, or sorry, impressionist painting kind of like, oh, we're this wash of sound, right? And often is associated with whole tone kinds of sounds, right? Augmented sounds. And in this case, we get that G sharp that doesn't sound right. So I have to know that because I listen to the piece and multiple recordings. If I just listen to one, they might not do that. And then my teacher's going to say, well, why didn't you slow down there? Well, it doesn't say to slow down. Okay, but you don't always do everything. The performance practice is just as important these days as what's written on the page, right? Because we do a lot of stuff that's not there. Think about the beginning of Mahler 5, right? We play it out of time, not out of time, but rushed, and it does sort of indicate that you should do something like that, but it's not really clear. But there's a very clear performance practice that it's in time, but the crunched, right? So anyway. So that's that, right? That took us 5.5 minutes. Not very long at all. And now I would just knock that out every day and make sure I spend about 5 more minutes on it cleaning it up. Okay, so there's our excerpt. Now that means that we're done. Check that off, right? That's not a check. That means we're done with the basic material, and that took us exactly the hour because I worked through it, right? If I actually just played it, it would take about 10 minutes, maybe not even. So let's continue on. What everybody wants us to do, lesson material, right? Yeah, we've already done all this. Oh, fantastic. So we've got the Harris and we've got the Vernon Reynolds. And I don't remember what Vernon Reynolds we said we would do. I do remember that we're done with the violin book. We're done with the Saxa book. For now, we're done with this scale sheet, although I am going to keep it on my stand because I need to practice it more. Yes, Vernon Reynolds, right. So let's look into the Vernon Reynolds. And I think I said, I don't remember what I said, 27, I think. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's what I said. Okay, so let's work on this. These are my two exercises, or etudes rather. I've got Vernon Reynolds, number 27, and I've got Aaron Harris, number 12, which happens to be a violin etude by Rodet, number 19 in the Rodet book. Okay, so we're going to start with Vernon Reynolds because it's going to feel the worst, I guarantee. And we're going to play it on B-flat trumpet because it's already hard enough. I don't need it to be a whole step higher as written, and I'm certainly not interested in transposing it. And you couldn't anyway because it even it has low. This etude doesn't. I don't think has any low Fs, but a lot of them do, and for sure they almost all have. Oh, there's a low F right there. Never mind. But they for sure almost all have low F sharps and low Gs. So we don't want to transpose them downward at least, and I don't want to transpose them up either. So okay, number 27. If you're following along at home, you can see here. Whoops, try to get some light on the subject. Number 27 it starts off rather tame. It says moderato, so again, I've been assigned this, right? And I need to play it down. In my lesson, I need to just go Just, just, just bopping along, right? Like nothing. So how am I going to get there in a week? I'm going to start with a metronome. And it says 92, right? I was almost right on. I'm never gonna be able to do this, right? Oops. Let's see. Is that right? So right now I'm working out the rhythms in the second half of the piece because I know that's where I need to work. I'm sort of talking I'm talking it. I'm not really singing it. I'm doing it kind of in the architecture of the line, but not on pitch, right? Because that's all I can handle if I'm trying to go at speed. So I need to go slower, and I need to address those spots. Now, if you were looking at this along with me or later, you might look at the fourth and fifth lines and say, well, that's the place I've got to work. And that's not wrong. It has these huge skips up to from high C downward all the way to over 2 octaves lower. That is the hard part, yes. But it's not that hard to hear. The hard part for me is the parts that are hard to hear, and that it's not just the rhythms but the notes as well. So again, like sight reading, I'm going to look for the patterns that I don't already know. I'm going to learn them right away, and then I'll be able to play the whole thing. So instead of going 92, how about we go half that tempo so we don't even have to touch it, right? Da 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 dun 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 da da da. Let's see if I can do that much. And here I'm just working forward through the piece. Oh, sorry. See, I didn't hear that right. I'll keep this on for now. I didn't hear that right, right? See what I mean? That's really bad to hear. Da, 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 da. So now here we are. We're going a quarter speed. But if that's how slow I need to go to get these in my ear and under my fingers and in my playing, that's how slow I need to go. And then I can speed it up very quickly if I get it right. Need to do that a couple of times, I think. I'm not sure I'm on pitch, but close enough. See if I can do the whole line. I'm gonna have to take that. I'm gonna take that F up an octave because if I'm having trouble getting to it at half tempo, then I can always change it back, right? If I really want to go for it. And it does change the line. I don't like that. But if it's that hard for me at half tempo, either I need to spend a ton of time on it, which maybe we can skip it for now and go back. That's an option, right? Yeah. But okay, so we're at half tempo on the hardest part of the piece for me. And we're getting pretty good at it, right? So let's see if we can... Oh, that's wrong. There's the same interval content on the same notes as on two different lines. So... see, that's what's hard. Right? Nope. So, I'm not ready for prime time on this, right? This part's going to take me days, right? But the rest of it's not, because I've focused on the hardest part and I know most of the rest of it. So the rest of it I'm going to focus on making sure I play musically, I get the details right. A lot of my students will say that the Vernon Reynolds book is like computer music and can't be played musically. And I don't think that's right. Because it's based on intervals a lot of the time. The first half of the book anyway, it can seem like it's sort of wandering musically, and that is true. It does wander, but you can still play musically within the line, right? And you'll see that in this one. I think it even though it's very marcato and sort of hard on the ears, there are little sections that you can really hear the sort of what I call five function, right? The dominant logic of it, as some scholars would call it. So let's see what we can do with it. I'm just going to try to play it down, and then we'll move on. I guess we've been going. Oh, I said 5 minutes, but I didn't stop this thing. So we did 5 more minutes on this. That's good. And it's supposed to be. I'm not going to go quite that fast, right? Because I know I can't in that section. The last two lines too. Basically, the second half is really what's hard for me. So we'll be able to play the first half okay. We might just hack our way through the second half, and you guys can just laugh at me. But that's not something that I recommend for practice, right? I'll do it for you just as sort of like I'm a clown. Listen to me hack through pieces. But you shouldn't really do that. You should sit down and work on them and then play them well. And if that means you go quarter speed like we did, that's what you do. All right, but here's Vernon Reynolds 27 with it sort of partially practiced. And I think you get the idea of how your lesson would, how you should prepare the lesson material. I only spent 5 minutes on it. You should spend all week on it. And I will. Maybe I'll do this for you next week. Whew, so we found a bunch more stuff that I need to work on. Again, no surprise, low range sucks. But I also couldn't hear the intervals for most of the second half as well as I should have. I did one section twice, and I could hear them, but I didn't physically play them very well. And you can see why, right? You beat your chops up for the middle part of the piece. You just can't, you don't have the stamina for the second half. So here's what I'm going to work on all week, right? If I'm sort of sight reading this after my lesson and I'm making sure I know what to work on, well, I've got the parts that are hard for my ears and fingers. Actually, did you hear that? The part that we worked on went really rather well comparatively, right? At my slightly slower tempo. So, and that would be acceptable for a lesson, that tempo, if you played every note really well. I need to do that for the whole second half of the piece. I also need the physical stamina to be able to do these that kind of stuff, right? And just even the ending, right? Sounds like Shostakovich, but so I need to work on my low range, but I also need to unify it with my deadlifting so that I can do hard stuff like that. And however I do it, I have to figure out how to get through the piece and still be able to do it, right? So that's a lot of stuff to work on. Vernon Reynolds number 27. There we go. All right. So now, finally, the Harris book. And this is going to have a lot of similar problems, but I know this one better, and it's easier to hear because it's violin stuff. I don't know if we're going to do, we could do the arioso, I guess. It's much harder to do the second half if you've done the arioso before because it's so slow. I mean, yeah, so extremely slow. It even gives you a nice note here. This one is in 6/8-3/4, and it says the use of 6/8 and 3/4 time in successive measures was extremely popular in the Venetian opera of the middle of the 17th century. So it doesn't say what that has to do with Rodet, number 19, I mean, except that maybe that's what this was about as well, just making sure that you know how to do that. But anyway, so we have to figure out how fast we want to do this. As fast as possible, that's not going to make the allegretto seem too slow, right? And the allegretto, in this case, so let me show you what I'm talking about. This is the arioso down there. So pretty slow, but this, look at all these fast octaves, right? So we don't want those to go too fast. So I think about this. Oh, sorry. And there's a fermata, and I'm going to need it. So now, that part we don't need to work on much, except to just make sure we have the physical stamina and the ear to hear those higher notes like the B flat and the A that we have to leap up to. I cracked one of those. and that we know the rhythms, right? This da dum ba ba da 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 dum. I don't think that's too fast for strings, but it's very hard for me to make that sound elegant, so I might have to go a little slower. But again, the longer it gets and the more I run out of stamina for the second half. So what is the second half? Well, da 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 da, right? That's most of the second half. Da 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 da. Let's see. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. So those are all the, I don't know if that's right. I was a half step off, but whatever. Those are all the first notes, and I'm doing an octave as if I was doing a string crossing, you know, da-yi, 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 or it's probably, yeah, it's that way. Da-yi, 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 right? That's what we're doing anyway. Now, I'm not positive. There's a grace note at the beginning of these bars. In some literature, a grace note would actually take half of the note's value away from it, and you know, so in other words, these would be eighth notes in this case, right? Or yeah, I guess eighth notes. So we go da-yi, 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 da-yi. But that's normally reserved for dissonances, right? And in this case, it can't be a dissonance because it's an octave, so it's not resolving from the dissonance to the note that you're allowed to write. So I don't think that's the case. I think this is a real grace note. I would love for somebody to correct me, but here we go. And we only have 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to try to play it down. I can tell you beforehand what all the hard parts are. It's not the octaves for me. It's playing the octaves, but it's also these. That's the hard stuff for me. So to go through it without it sounding clunky, that's not probably going to happen today. But you can tell that I've worked on the fingerings before, so we have an okay chance of getting the rest of this to go fine. Stamina-wise, though, I've been playing for 2 hours, on and off with you guys. I'm not sure I'm going to make it through the whole thing, but again, that's why we didn't warm up too much. If we were just running through this material, we would just be hitting the half-hour mark of our lesson, and we'd have plenty of time to ask questions and work on this, right? So it's our combination that is making it long, not the lesson itself. That's all right. Oh, I didn't even mute my mic. Well, that's what I get. Anyway, so that's plenty of long, difficult things. And so let's recap, because we got a couple of minutes left. That only takes 2 minutes to play. Feels like an hour, right? So what are we going to do better? Well, we're definitely dropping our jaw and using a lot of jaw motion for these octaves. But actually, the octaves are the thing that sounds the best, honestly, even if I don't get them. The thing that sounds the worst is all this crud in the middle. And it's definitely my low register. I'd like to pull off my bottom lip. Right, I like to pull off my bottom lip. I really need to get focused down there. I need to lower my tongue position still more, and I need to get focused so that I'm not sort of bobbling around on my lips down there, right? So that's number one. And how am I going to work on that? I'm going to play this actual etude slowly enough to ensure that's true, and then I'm going to do it in chunks to make sure I can do it fast as well, right? So let's pick a really good... like that, right? Just little by little, making sure I feel really comfortable, and then I need to be able to go smoothly through it. There's some notes in there I don't hear. Those D flats are also really hard to pull out for, but you really kind of need to, or you got to go so blindingly fast that now I've made other errors. So anyway, that's most of what I would sort of expect to see in a lesson, right? So let me recap really quickly. We did scales. Well, first we warmed up just for the lesson, and we didn't do too much, right? Then we went to the lesson. We got quizzed on scales. We did minor modes, right? We did some flexibility. We did violin number 15, I believe, or 14 or somewhere around in there. Then we did some sight reading out of the Bona book. I think we did number 90. Then we transposed. We did Saxa 41 down a major third, so it would be in the key of A flat major, which is what we sight read in. Didn't go super well. Went fine, but I needed to work on my A flat much more. We did Reps Espagnol, and we worked that out in about 5 minutes or so. And then we did a Harris etude, this number 12, Rode number 19, and we did a Vernon Reynolds etude, which again I can't remember. I believe it was 27, right, with a lot of octave and agility things in it. So I've got some difficult stuff to work on, but I think a good. We didn't do any Brandenburg, right, and that's what I'm supposed to be working on professionally. But that doesn't mean I stop work. Just because I have something hard coming up doesn't mean I stop working on the rest of my trumpet playing forever. Maybe the week of, maybe 2 weeks out, which will be kind of like next week. But for now, I can keep working on this stuff, and it keeps me in good general shape, right? So here's my plan for next week, and I'll see if I stick to it. I'm going to practice these etudes. I'm going to pick. I'll pick myself a new excerpt and a new transposition. And new flexibility, and I'll continue to work on my minor modes, but I'll give myself a more specific task. And we'll do that in the beginning of the stream next week, or maybe halfway through or whatever, depending on what other stuff I want to do. If I want to do a warm-up, then we'll warm up together and then do the lesson. But I'll show you the beginning of a lesson that I've actually prepared as a student, right? So it'll be those things that we worked on today. These two etudes, a new transposition, a new excerpt, a new flexibility exercise, probably still out of violin because that's what I'm working on, and some more minor modes, maybe in thirds or something, right? So anyway, come back and join me next week during the stream for that. And yeah, let's see if I do it or if I have some dumb excuse next week. It's hard not to, right? Because we have all kinds of other things to do. But having someone else, in this case you guys, hold you accountable is one of the greatest benefits of lessons. And you have to learn to do that on your own. So I'm not promising that I'm the best practicer for a week's worth of stuff anymore, because I haven't been taking lessons for a long time. But I have my journal to help me, and I have you guys to hold me accountable. And so that should be enough, and I'm going to try to work on this material. Okay? So hopefully I will see you next week. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I'd be happy to address anything you want. Okay? Bye-bye for now.